Okay, gonna go review the Abraham to the Exodus on the Bris Ben Abisarim covenant between the pots and how that relates to the 430 years. This week, the Torah reading will be reading the 430 years, and how does that relate to the 400 years of the covenant between the pots? Okay, so Torah discovery chronology. Probably about a decade ago, we gave a class at Link Colo, Los Angeles Community Colo, and we deduced how Rashi, the is Commission Rashi, it's in Mikra Gedola, it's in many Chumashim, Rashi, and also in Chabad Tanakh, use the see Rashi function. So this week we're going to read Bo Kam Taro and the last three of the Aseret, 10 Aseret Makat, 10 Makas, 10 plagues that God measure for measure, golden road, justice, smote Egypt and their idols with before the Exodus, at the end of 210 years from when Jacob went down in the year. Okay, so you want to have Rashi or look at Tanakh later to follow up. So here, this cover here depicts Joseph testing the brothers in between the Malites, Menashe and Ephraim. They're probably about 9 and 8 years old. Famine year 2, not long before Jacob comes down to join him in Egypt with the rest of the family, and most of the brothers are here. Last week I had the summary book, the Legacy of Sinai, Zechariah Fendo. So, what we do is we align this Torah chronology, which he references, with ancient civilization. The only main two things we have to add are the timing of the covenant between the pots that we will talk about now, and how that relates to the 430 years, and Rashi, and how Rashi cannot hold, like the one he quotes, when Avram is 70, but it does. So the covenant between the pots is not 70, but the catalyst for the covenant between the pots is when Abraham is 70, but it's actually not till when Abraham is 85. So that would be consistent with Rashi, but it happening when Abraham is 70, Rashi could not hold that. The math doesn't add up. And Rashi quotes somebody, but Rashi himself didn't say when he thinks covenant between the pots is, and Rashi could not possibly think it happened when Abraham was age 70. It turns out the catalyst for the covenant between the pots, and we'll explain what that catalyst was for the start of the 430-year count. Covenant between the pots is when Abraham's just turning 85, is the highest probability explanation of the Torah and ancient civilization. And that's in Medrash Bereshis Rabbah has Chazal Medrash on Bereshis Rabbah does have a makor, a reference of Avram being 85 at the covenant between the pots. But it's certainly after he arrives. According to Rashi, what Rashi teaches, it has to be after Abraham goes to Israel, after his age, which is when he's 75. Okay, so Rashi and Chumash, Rashi, Chabad on Tanakh, on Genesis. Use a with Rashi function if you don't have access to Chumash and Rashi. And we posted in the link to our infographic from Torah Discovery Chronology. We have an infographic in here, 300 pages, all free with Kindle Unlimited, 99 cents on Kindle. Without Unlimited, you can view it on your computer, even if you don't have Kindle. And also called Bible Chronology, Untying a Knot.
Akiva.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, we're starting the program now on Torah chronology, Abraham to the Exodus, a 400-year span. Happy Rosh Chodesh, everybody. It's Rosh Chodesh Shvat, going to Bet Shammai, New Year for trees. And this was scheduled for LinkedIn, but I couldn't figure out how to go live there with the video. So I'm shifting it over here to YouTube. And again, the 10th anniversary when we first presented this at Link Kollel with Rabbi Asher Brander stopping in and Rabbi Eli Stern. In the meantime, subsequent to that, we figured out a few other things. The 52-year Persian span that had been a mystery. We've reconciled that with ancient civilization. Turns out the consensus is not just is inflated by 148 years during the Persian span. So everybody, well, not everybody, but people who knew Torah knew 3390 on a Monday at the end of Jeremiah 70 years, Cyrus proclamation. Then it's another 52 years. It's until Alexander, initial victory over Persia at River Granicus. And we show how the history books, the Hellenized corrupted history books have three major repetitions and a whole bunch of overlap, a little bit of other fudge. Adds up to 148 years of extra years in the kind of consensus. And then 16 more years actually during Ptolemy too. So that's 164 years of fudge in the inflated current consensus history books. Pretty much from Sargon to phase 3 exile of the 10 tribes of Israel in 3205 on a Monday. It's about 164 years at that point. And it was fluctuating between about 450 years and change from the Elamana letter span during late Eli, during mid-Samuel to end of Samuel, to the end of Saul, mid-Saul to the end of Saul, and life of Saul, I'm talking about, and life of Samuel, who was born, lived about 52 years, born about a year after the start of Eli, which was just after the end of Samson. And the EA letter span, the 30th span, ends early King David and Tut. David Raw helps us anchor that at that time. Okay. So yeah, it ends about early King David, 2884. So about 2885, end of the EA letter span. EA Elamana letter span that ends here to King Tut. Okay, so Ramses 2 is an AKA based on Shishak. All right, but anyway, that's a different topic. So now we want to focus on how Rashi does not hold the covenant between the pots was 8 when Avram was 70, but the 430 does begin, 40-year span does begin when Avraham is age 70. Avram was born in 1948 on a Monday, 48 years before the dispersion from Babel. So by this point, already we're in Iraq, are about 100 years old. 100, over 100 years old at this point. During Iraq were founded when Avram was born. Before Avram was born, they were formed midway between the end of the global flood when we disembarked the ark and the founding of Egypt 350 years later. So about 175 is midway to 350, halfway between the flood of Noah and the founding of Egypt by Mitzrayim and sons. And shortly after the passing of 2006 passing of Noah, Ur and Iraq were founded about relatively much earlier than consensus is in relation to the Ice Age, in relation to the founding of the start of time, Earth, start of mankind, one on Monday, starting day 6, and the relation to that and the Ice Ages. So it's the Ice Ages defined by materially lower ocean levels. Okay, that's the key to understanding how to align to our science and understanding science, highest probability science. The 1656 on a Monday Mabul mixing of the upper and lower waters. Upper lower waters probably include a couple of asteroid impacts, material impacts that year. See Jack Hanoka, PhD, and Bora Torah, Journal 15 on that. The reference in Talmud. Okay, so anyway, before we get into Rashi, let's talk about the, I mentioned Shvat, New Year for trees, come to Beit Shammai. So Chinese New Year, it doesn't always come on one Shvat, but normally one Shvat or one Adar, depending on, I think it depends on when you put your, make your leap year, when you intercalculate the calendar. So they go back to Noah. So we go back to the birth year Noah is right now 5,785 minus 1,056 birth of Noah, also known the basis for genetic Adam. And if anyone knows genetics, they know that genetic Adam was born, they should know, well after genetic Eve. So how could that be? Because of the flood, genetic bottleneck epoch. And most of that shows up not just with mankind, but across globally across many of the founding animal kinds that were represented, land animals that were represented on the Ark of Noah. So they find a genetic bottleneck there, and including man. But while all the males were from Noah and his wife Naamah, the 3 sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they did have 3 daughters-in-law who were not their children. So that's why it was not the female Eve is not on the Ark of Noah. There's some genetic diversity already from 3 other families. So there are 4 families represented on the Ark, 3 through the wives of Noah, and Noah and his wife Naamah. Okay, so that's the year 600. Noah, since Noah was born in 1056, he passed on in 2006. We explain in volume 1 the recent complex creation framework six-principle framework for principles for understanding science and context. This not how an angel looks, but Rembrandt did consult a Torah observant rabbi when he the struggle. It's actually we like it because it is chinuch to describe the struggle between Torah and science. When they work together, then you can get to the end of the truth. The whole world can come to the truth once they understand how science attests, not just aligns with, but corroborates and attests to Torah narrative and chronology. Thousands, not billions, like the great ICR research great team on radiometric dating. And actually, so aligns with, and it actually falsifies the all deep time dependent that depend on over 5 million models and hypotheses and theory, all falsified, properly falsified in volume 2. Perlmutter cosmology, spiral cosmological redshift, and hypothesis, and this shows it's one of the covers. Actually, that's an old cover, but yeah, you might still look at that. But anyway, cosmic expansion ended. We just had the name of God, and Sha'amad died. Hashem said enough. The Shin Daled Yud Shakai, name of God, and it means the one who said enough. And what's that talking about? It actually describes creation and cosmic expansion ending in gravitational bound equilibrium. And that's what the vastly higher science finds for those outside the modern cosmology, faith-based, religious like faith-based box, because it relies on, it's cumulative, it's not open science. So it depends on the axioms of that are weak at best and probably been falsified by the cosmological principle and the Copernican principle. And actually, to say that Copernicus held that the universe had no center is a misrepresentation of his understanding, because he actually had the sun, a solar-centric universe, but he held it was pretty much, the sphere of the visible universe, and that's what we find. And that is vastly higher probability science once you understand all the applicable science, like cosmological redshift, cosmic magnetic background radiation, and then the other things line much better. We have a 5.67 quintillion to 1 parsimony advantage. Aside from that's just for spots, you have many more testable predictions that have been, many are self-evident, many have been confirmed by James Webb Space Telescope subsequent to our having predicted it. So, science attests that Moses had it right to begin with. That's why we got the Moshe Amos series. Okay, very good. So, so we think that, incredulity has no scientific weight. Science is not a popularity contest. So both Galileo and Einstein agree with this statement. One layman with a higher probability explanation of the empirical cosmological observations outweighs an unlimited number of highly credentialed scientists on the topic that still held by the current consensus champion. So incredulity is mostly just a tale of ignorance. So most people, most scientists, probably aren't intentionally ignorant, but they just don't know they don't know. And even worse, one of their big mistakes is what they think they don't know a lot. Like, for example, those two, what they rely on, they assume other people know where they're going. And it's like the Three Stooges. Oh, I thought you know where you were going. So, no, I was following you, etc. And confirmation bias, it represents works. That's pretty much how one way the Yetzer Sahara, the amazing design of free will, is working in stress tested and working, from midday 6 in the Garden of Eden, where we were tested, and still works like new. And confirmation bias, those faulty premise before, like that I mentioned, that are axioms of modern cosmology, which is faith-based. It's not open science. It's cumulative, building on those axioms. That creates the confirmation bias reinforced box that's devoid of the actuality. You have to step back 2 or 3 steps from that. So in Perlman versus Ptolemy canon, we find the universe attain gravitational bound equilibrium, entire universe at about 1 billion light year radius, surrounded based on the cosmic microwave background radiation temperature. Okay. Early in history, the number of years ago, equal to spiral. I showed before on the book, Perlman spiral radius I. So number of light years to where we see all those objects beyond radius I from by the end of 90. Okay. So anyway, yeah, you could look into that. That's a different topic too. Look, we had a program on Einstein's doubt. Check that out. And that covers that. Okay. So let's see. Okay, hopefully everybody got a chance to look at that infographic. Let me see if I can. Okay, I'm going to post it in the chat. And you can be looking at it if you haven't checked it out yet. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so, okay. Oh, so no. Okay, so year 600 was from Noah birth was 1056 plus 600 is 1656, the global flood in Noah. If you do the math, Avram, that's the whole point of getting to Avram, birth at his father age 70. Some people assume Avram was born. That was not referring to Abraham, but we know from tradition, Chazal, that it's talking about Abraham, and there are some other good reasons to hold that. But anyway, just assume for now, 1948, birth of Abraham. Okay. So, Noah passed in 2006. Hard to argue with that. If you're using the Masoric text, which is the only one that can fully align with Torah and science, and if you use the LXX, whatever, using translation of a translation or a corrupted text, it's not even the original Septuagint, which we know the 72 sages made many changes in, just so that to not put a stumbling block before the blind. Okay. And actually, one of the changes was about the 430 year count, so that people wouldn't say, what's it talking about? It contradicts. But if really, we'll get into that, why, how they align. they all three align with 2,448 Exodus. So 100 years from 1948 birth of Abraham till birth of Isaac, then 400 years, 2,448, the Exodus. Okay, so with a few years after Pepe too, we have, check out the Great Pyramid span, Abraham to the Exodus, perhaps it to some degree. Diary of Meror relates to the son of Levi, Merari. Okay. Okay, so year 600 of Noah, it's actually like a 600-year count if you look in the 600th year. So this is just like this is year 430, and I'll explain what it was at what the catalyst was at the covenant between the pots when Abraham was age 70, even though the covenant between the pots didn't happen till 15 years later. And I'll explain why and how that adds up. Okay, I just want to mention, since today is one Shabbat, 5,785, and it's also Chinese New Year. This year they coincide. New Year for trees, Chinese New Year. But the Chinese New Year, the only, should probably do a separate segment on it. The only, assuming that it's accurate and statistically significant, there are three major known year counts in Chinese years. One almost everybody knows, but if you look, there were three. They're all pretty statistically significant. They correlate to the birth of Noah. There's almost no other explanation for it if you have a historic character and using the Titus timeline. That's 5,785 on a Monday to date from first Adam, Harishon, and genetic Eve. Gan Eden, stunning days, literal day 6. So back then, entropy was much lower, so there are many more years between the generations, so nobody's even close who is on the ark and came from the old pre-deluge till the modern world post. Then the 8 on the ark, and obviously Noah is the only one whose birth date is close, because Shem, Ham, and Japheth are all born within 100 years, 199, 98 before the flood. They don't go back nearly enough to get close to the Chinese year count. So Okay, so what's 5,785 minus 1,056? Should be 4,730, 29, 4,000, just rounded to 4,730. I think it might be 4,729. I guess it depends if there's a 0 year or not you're using, or if you're doing like we count our age with a 0 year instead of counting from, if you're starting from year 1, like we count from on a Monday from this being 5,785, no 0 year would be 5,786. You use a 4. I have to think about that for a minute. I guess 5,784 if we had a 0 year. Okay, and that's assuming you don't count a partial year for the first 5 days of creation, like some people did, and some people still do, although not too common. Okay, so 4,729 year count from the birth of Noah, say 4,730. Now, I believe, I didn't double check, but it could be 4,723. One of the popular Chinese year counts. So that's off by 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure if they use a 0 year or not. Okay, so that's definitely statistically significant, especially when there's normally 70 to 100 years between a generation. During that lower entropy, people matured slower, lived longer, grew bigger overall. So before the universe is degraded, and then a gradual radiation build, increase in energy due to radiation build, which leveled off after about 1,500 years. The difference between pre-Marble and modern levels, the difference entropy radiation levels halving every X number of years during that about 1,000 plus year span. Then ends around the time of the Hyksos occupation, which was started about 108 years after the Exodus. Measure for measure. 108 years of Egypt was pretty much decimated, and then 108 years of Hyksos occupation. Okay, so 216 years, measure for about 108 years, we were in forced labor. We were oppressed and forced labor and abused by the Egyptians, and the array was turned out to be for our benefit, but they didn't have to be be the stick to beat us into shape with that Hashem used to accelerate our accelerated refinement process, where we're able to receive the entire Torah after just 26 generations, rather 974 generations early, rather than waiting 1,000 generations. Let's get back. So Noah, year 600, then 350 years to the founding of Egypt by Mitzrayim and son, shortly after the 2006 birth of Noah. Okay, then it's going to be another 12 years until the Avram's age 70. And what happened then? It was a declaration of independence by the 5 kings of Sodom and their allies against the Akkadian access. So it's pretty much like no taxation without representation. And so it seems even, it was a good enough that Hashem liked, liberty and not tyranny. So rather than serving the government, we had, liberty able to do our responsibilities. The 7 Noahide, universal 7 Noahide covenants, or eventually after the iron furnace of Egypt, the entire Torah 613 that applied to the children of Israel that were subjected to that process, and to with the exception of Gentiles that join and take that burden or yoke, I should say. It's more like a yoke than a burden, guide to a lot of restrictions. It's like entering a marriage. Why get married? A lot of restrictions, but if you're married, you realize that that you can become a far greater person than living alone. Okay, so too, taking on the covenant, but it's better to do the 7 and keep the 7 than it is to take on the whole 613 and pick and choose, and intentionally not try your best to for a sustained effort for a lifetime. And in order to do your best, you really have to also study and put yourself in a place where you can be successful. Have a chance of succeeding in abiding by the entire sixth Taryag, our eternal covenant 613. A lot of them are linked to that specific land, the Holy Land, and to the Holy Temple service therein. But I'd like to say that we're actually, in some ways, by not bringing the sacrificial service any place else, but where we're commanded to, we're actually And in the meantime, it's in our prayer service, charity, prayers, repentance, and charity. Like Samuel, who thrived during the EA lettuce famine, like he told King Saul, greater is obedience than even service. So by being obedient and not bringing the sacrificial service in the prescribed manner, if we're unable to, so rather than bring the sacrificial service, where in defiance of the commandment not to bring it anywhere but on the Holy Temple Mount of King David, where King Solomon he prepared, and King Solomon built the temple. We are actually great as obedience, which we're doing by not violating that covenant, that commandment, than the service of actually bringing it. So in that way, you could say we're plus, okay, and doing the davening. It's not like we're not missing and wanting to do it, but I think we need. I don't think we're allowed to. I think we have to do it with approval of the government. So hopefully we don't get a government that's going to approve it, and then there's no reason. There's certain aspects to, you have to do it in accord with Torah law, or like I said, it's better not to do it if you're going to desperate. But there are people who know how to, experts in halacha, who know how to do it, and there are certain things we can do when the majority of us are, like now, are ritually impure until we can get somebody pure, and then once we do that, then we can probably by then maybe once we get the service going, hopefully the clouds of glory will be there. Hopefully prophecy will be restored, and we'll know how and when to build the temple. Some people say something shouldn't take any more than it takes for the to make matzah. So it could be as few as 18 minutes. When the temple is restored, it could be prefab. We'll have it prepared. It'll be dropped down. God will do it himself. But anyway, we can get the service going even before we have the temple there. Certain aspects of it in accord with Torah law. Okay, so back. So the Chinese year count, are they off by 6 years? No, yeah, could be. Or they're doing it from when, or 7 years, could be from when Noah, genetic Adam, was weaned. And that would be, so now people are weaned between ages 1 and 3. So it is possible to have an precise year count. Just goes back to the weaning of Noah, because with the lower entropy, instead of being weaned between ages 1 and 3, probably between the ages of like 5 and 10. So it could be a precise count. If it is a precise count, and if it is historic, it must be when Noah, was weaned. If not, they're only off by a few years. Okay. Nice. Okay, so let's get back to Rashi. Okay, so Rashi quotes, there's someone who says, from when the 430 years from when Abraham was age 70, and also mentions covenant between the pots. Now, it could be just in recording that he really didn't mean that was when the covenant between the pots was, but was linked to the covenant between the pots, like we find when Abraham is over 75 after he comes to Israel, and better yet, Medrash Rabbah, age 85, just turning 85, but before the birth of Ishmael, and before Abraham knows Hagar is expecting, probably. Okay, so let's get back to the dispersion. 340 years after the we get 1056 global flood, mixing the upper and lower waters. The transition from the original single continent formed on day 3. We also cover that in volume 2. Snap and drop play hypotheses on the formation of the original single continent to the breakup 1656 years later, about 29% into history during the Marble impacts year. 1996 is 52 years before the destruction of Saddam, which was 1 year before the birth of Isaac. Abraham's born in 1948 at 2048, birth of Isaac, -1 when Sarah conceived is 2047. So 1996 to 2047 is 99 years. Count, 50. Okay, so it should be 99 years. Okay, so 2047, when the three, Hashem's visiting, God of Abraham's visiting Abraham 3 days after circumcision. God sends Abraham some guests Abraham's like having withdrawal symptoms. He's so used to having guests and teaching them about God, teaching them Torah, the word and will of Hashem. The 3 guests come, and who are they? They're one's to heal Abraham, and maybe bring news that Sarah's going to have a child, and at least 2 of them go on to Saddam to rescue Lot and destroy the 4 towns of Saddam. The 5th one, Lord, please let me go there. And it's Nun, Olive. So Nun is 50, Olive 1. That town's only 51. It had not the full measure of trespass for 52 years, like the 4 towns, the 4 original towns of Saddam that were founded 52 years earlier, in 1996, the same year the dispersion from Babel. We know that because one of the reasons Peleg passed on that year. We know how Peleg was when he passed on. That's when the land split. So it can mean the people, the land split, but it also can mean that's about the approximate end of the ice ages that set in cause and effect because of the Marble impacts here. And the materially lower ocean levels, we defined the ice ages. And because of the rising ocean levels, so even though the catastrophic events of the Marble that set hypertectonic plate action, mountain uplift, volcanic action, was mostly centered around the Marble impacts here, mass dinosaur extinctions. We could still go for the continents now, no longer a single continent. Many of them could still be accessed for materially lower ocean levels, over 100 feet. I forgot how many feet exactly on average. It depends obviously on probably waxed and waned. So there are times, 2,000-mile land bridge between Asia and the Americas, over by Alaska, Kamchatka. So, or at least for a decade, the islands, between connecting Southeastern Asia and Australia, with debris mats, probably ocean currents hadn't yet ripped open. It was probably very easy to get, at least for a decade, for the animals to get from the Ark to get there before they got isolated, like kangaroos, whatever. Just like the sloths came to the Americas, probably heading east with a lot of the other animals migrations, the giant sloths, and then they speciated, and adapted, and then devolved with the increase in entropy to probably about 6 breeds we have now of sloth. But the proto sloth pair in the Ark migrated from probably near Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, where I believe we found it shortly off the Ark, to the Americas. Okay. Just like the kangaroos made it to Australia. And again, the founding kangaroos are probably a lot larger too. It's a low entropy. That was not just for man, but also animals too. Okay. Why the dinosaurs who we held were, we'll define them as, from the last on day 6, Taninim Gedolim, last on day 6. Founding kinds included what became the adaptant speciate into the dinosaurs, and then they were not. We find in Perlman 6 principles, recent creation framework. We find they were implicit. They were on the passenger list of Noah. If then they were taken on stow as pets, extras. They didn't do too well after the flood, the new conditions. So if there were any that survived the flood, they don't last too long. But the ones that devolved from them, modern reptiles, from go back to the Taninim Gedolim, the ones that had lost their legs or going to the side or lost their legs, they were able to survive outside the Ark, at least a couple, enough for them to get to where we are now, because they would not be subjected to hypothermia the way a dinosaur that had legs underneath it would in the water. So you can see even today, some crocodiles and sea snakes can be in the water pretty much almost for a year or whatever, and especially debris maps. And 9 months probably was all they had to be. And with even less, because the water didn't cover the Ark, and I didn't get till 40 days. I don't think the Ark got off the ground, and probably some trees still, and some places they could last for 40 days before the ocean currents rate picked up. My uncle Phil Mandel, full professor of ship design, was an early mentor of my Boston College days on the global flood of Noah and the ocean currents. And we talk about that and some ideas we have from back then. And Dr. John R. Baumgartner, plate tectonics, him and Yaakov Hanoka, Dr. Hanoka, PhD, Boratara journals, 13, 15, and 17, Lebanon, too, on radiometric dating. Okay, and more things that are being found out now that align, best with entire narrative and timeline. Okay, so let's get back to Rashi. Okay, so 52 years before the 2047 destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, 4 towns, it's 1996, the very year. It was very lush there before the destruction, very prime land. So if you're going to move to Israel, to the land of Shem and Aver, Ivri land, Hebrew land, as tenants at will, subject to the seven Noahide laws, then you're going to probably want to build there first. And then 7 years later, I think they got around to Hebron, building historic Hebron. But Shem and Aver, already by Greater Jerusalem, or Melchizedek founded probably around the time they founded Ur in Iraq. In between that, Asher ben Shem founded Assyria. He didn't like what was going on with the Tower of Babel, so he took his family to Assyria. Okay, so 1996, the 5 towns of Sodom are founded in the land of Shem and Aver by 4 of the 5 towns by Canaanite children of Canaan. You also check out who we identify as Canaan in the history books and even in the Chumash. He has more than at least 3 identifications in Chumash, Canaan, then Ham. So even though he's listed last of the children of Ham, he's actually the eldest we find. But anyway, you can check that out. That's also in Torah chronology. And how that relates to Sargon of Akkad, Eliezer of Damascus, king of Bashan. They all relate to Canaan. He's got Sarkhan. It wasn't Sargon. It was actually Sarkhan, Canaan, based on Canaan. Okay, and 1996. Okay, that's going to be another 10 years before before Noah passes on. So Noah passes on. The Akkadian Empire, Nimrod, Amraphel, I believe, threw Avram into the furnace, whatever, that they used to make the bricks for the Tower of Babel. Hashem saved, and okay, so then they start to subjugate the other nations that had started to disperse and demanding taxes, whatever. So it's actually a 10-year delay, but even if you don't take a 10-year delay, even if you say, so why build why build the 5 towns, there in Canaan? Why would they? And Melchizedek is the king. If you're already going to be paying high property taxes, why not move further away? So there was some time. First, the Akkadian axis, they didn't start subjugating people for about 10 years, but let them work, let them think they're working for themselves, and then start making them pay protection money, tribute. And that's what happened. So right after, if you start the 12 years of tribute, they paid tribute for 12 years. And then, according to Rashi, for 13 years, they didn't pay tribute. So at the end of the 12 years, we were at 1996 plus 10. Noah passed on 2006. Add 12 years, the tribute years, when they did pay tribute. And what are you up to? 2018. That's Abraham, age 70, 1948 to 2018, 70 years old. And that is the catalyst for the covenant between the parts. Also, okay, so first of all, that's the start of the year count. Okay, now we're Declaration of Independence from the Akkadian Empire. Now, for whatever reason, the Akkadian axis did not come that within a year. That's a long trip, first of all, from Babel or or Iraq, or wherever they were based, the Akkadian Empire of Nimrod. Don't forget, this is after Sargon of Akkad. He was out of favor. He's and we'll find out that he is actually Canaan, so he's not part of that Akkadian axis. And let them accumulate some funds first. And if we go now, we'll get maybe 1 year's tax, and we'll go through that whole war. Let's let them work for a while and accumulate wealth again. Then we'll come down and get 14 years worth. So they came down in the 14th after 13 years. Then the 14th year, so that's 12 years plus to Abraham's age 70, plus 13 years. Abraham's age 83. So in Abraham's 84, they come down is the war of the 4 kings against the 5 kings, and they, probably a lot of other people also stopped paying taxes when they saw the 4 kings doing it, 5 kings doing it, and why should we pay taxes? They're not, make an alliance. And don't forget, the 5 kings, they had Canaan, who was we identify him in the war, so he was, they probably felt comfortable that they had him on their side, even if the other side had Nimrod. Okay, so the 4 kings come down. That's in when Abraham's 84, in 18 plus 13, 2018 plus 13 plus 1, 14 is 2032. Okay, so 2032. That sounds right. 2018 plus 14, 13 plus 1 is 2032. 4 kings come down, defeat the 5 kings, take Lot hostage. They may have mistaken him for Abraham, or they knew that they could get Abraham. Nimrod had a thing against Abraham for a long time, and it's hard to control people if they know that we have one common father, Hashem, and Hashem's our king. Why should a human be? Why should we belong to and be controlled by a human when we should, in a government, why should our rights be usurped? Okay, so the one who escaped, we have a tradition that's Og, who we find is Canaan. We find that turns out to be Sagan of Akkad, and he was actually conceived on the ark. Chazal have Ham and 2 others had relations on the ark. I think the raven and the canine, and that was the Canaan was a result of that. So a stigma on his birth, and then especially after the when he was a wine pourer, being the eldest grandchild of Noah. That's the whole thing about how he became cursed or whatever, and what he did at that. But anyway, he escapes the 4 kings, comes to get Abraham, your nephew, got taken hostage by the 4 king, Akkadian access. Abraham gets, whether it's just Og or he gets his confederates, or, followers, I think 318, forgot the exact number. It adds up to, I think, to Eliezer, but it might also, I'm assuming just not the 2 of them, but it could have, even if it was the 2 of them. They pursue the 4 kings, they defeat the 4 kings, and rescue Lot, the people. Now, Canaan, some people think, Canaan had, well, if Abram gets killed, then I can take Sarah. But also, I think that, as we identify Og as Canaan, those were his descendants who had been taken captive. So he had an interest in rescuing them. And also, I guess not, maybe knew that he didn't want to be, he knew it was not a, Nimrod didn't like him either. I guess he saw Canaan as a threat. So then we talk about that in the first wars in Torah chronology, volume 3. Okay, so now we're up to Abraham, age 84. Now it comes back to the Valley of the Kings. Now it could be Jerusalem, but it could very well be down by, this is when Sodom is the 10 years before the taxation, then 12 years, then 14 years is 24, 30, 34. So it's still not 52. So this is about 18 years before the destruction of Saddam. So still very pristine there, beautiful, like the garden. I think it said like the garden of the not, probably like zone, the best part of Egypt. And I'm not sure if they compare it to Aden or not, but well watered. Lot wanted to go over there when his shepherds and those of Abraham were having a dispute, and Lot chose to go down to the Jordan Valley over there. It was before the destruction and the brimstone fire. So, which, if you go up further toward the Kinneret in that valley, there it is still very fertile. Some kibbutz teretz in Emek Beit Shan, and tremendous agriculture over there, and farming. Okay, so also high in oxygen. It's very low. It's below sea level, so it probably gives it higher oxygen. It's interesting. So, okay, so it could have been. Check out our Atlantis legend. So if Plato's Atlantis legend has historic basis, we identify what it is. Abraham is Atlas. His titans are his confederates, Mamre, and down by Hebron, and Eliezer, who did Teshuvah, becomes, Canaan does Teshuvah, becomes Eliezer Damascus, right-hand man to Abraham after the, not just defeating the 4 kings, but Abraham's had a right to keep all the prisoners, but he didn't, and didn't take any compensation. So that probably helped Eliezer become do Teshuvah and grow closer and recognize Hashem, God of heavens, God of Abraham, as the master of the universe and creator, just as described by Moses. Although back then, we still only knew Hashem not by as deeply as Hashem revealed to Moses by the bush that was not consumed. So now we're at Abraham up to age 85. So in Rashi, he says Abraham was concerned at the brisbane of the Sarim covenant between the pots, which, by the way, is 1 year after. It was about Pesach time when the 3 angels came. Just as much earlier. I think the war between with the 4 kings was also about Passover time. I think this way we have a tradition on that. I think on the Passover, it happened at midnight. It happened on Passover. It's 2 songs at the end after the Haggadah. One of them might have to do with the 4 kings, or the 4 and 5 kings, and the covenant between the pots. So it was a year after the War of the 4 Kings, and now it's 2032 plus 1, 2033 of the covenant between the pots. Abraham was concerned after 2032, after his victory over the 4 kings, that he'd used up his merit, and that what Hashem had assured him when he's at age 75 now, close to 10 years prior, almost a decade prior, he may have used up his merit. But in some ways, it was one of the 10 tests, I believe, so actually he gained more merit. So anyway, Hashem reassures him at the covenant between the pots, that Rashi holds Abraham was concerned that he used up his merit in the war on the 4 kings, and because we know when Saddam was founded, not before 1996. We know that aside from that I hold that they wouldn't have started the taxation until after the passing of Noah 10 years later. But even without that, there's 12 years of taxation, 13 years according to Rashi of no taxation, and then the year of the war. That's 12 plus 13 plus 1, 26 years. So if you add 26 to 1996 even, you're still going to get what? 1996 plus 26 is 22. Okay, I believe it's Abraham is 48 at the covenant, at the dispersion from Babel, 1948 plus 48, 1996. 48 plus 26 is what? 74. So I'd have to go through the math, but basically Abraham's in Haran at age 75, and God tells him to go to the land I've shown you. And before that, Abraham's been living in Israel. After he goes down to Egypt, Lot goes, how does Lot get, Abraham took Lot with him when he went to Israel, his nephew Lot. So Abraham's been living in Israel, Lot's been living in Israel, they're very wealthy, they have lots of sheep, which was after they went down to Egypt after the famine, which was after Abraham's living in Israel after he was age 75. So I think we hold that 76 is when Abraham goes down to Egypt. And then that's when Lot's taken captive. But either way, there's not enough time for it to, even if you started that 12-year taxation, right after the founding of Egypt, which is, highly improbable. But through context, you can see that doesn't make sense. Certainly not when Abraham is 70. So it's got to be after Abraham's 70, because you had 12 years and 13 years, then 1 year, 26 years. That's already, and 1996 is earlier, so it's at least 4 years. But once you say Abraham's not 70, then there's no, then, that has, again, Rashi quoted it. We don't know if there is some loss in information when it got recorded, transcribed by Rashi, the person Rashi quoted. We're not sure exactly where the breakdown in communication came, but that age 70 talks about the catalyst for the covenant between the pots. It couldn't possibly be, based on how Rashi holds, the covenant between the pots itself, as the covenant between the pots is definitely after, according to Rashi, the victory over the 4 kings, 1 year after. Which would be, I guess, in Abraham 75, and that's the earliest possible in that. But if you look at the other contexts, 10 years later, everything fits perfectly. We don't want to go past 85, because once at the covenant between the pots, Abraham has not had any children yet, not even Ishmael. Okay, so we're not from, who's going to inherit me? I don't have children, whatever. So obviously he didn't have Ishmael yet. It was born in Abraham's 86. Rashi cannot possibly hold, based on how Rashi holds, that the covenant between the pots was when Abraham was 70. So we show what exactly happened when Abraham was 70 to be the cause for the catalyst between the pots and the year count, because it says I think it even uses the language, just like with Noah, year 600. I'm not sure if it even says when he's age 600 or in the 600th year, maybe from counting from his lifetime. And the Chinese do a pretty good job at not keeping that year count alive, maybe, but from his weaning. So too, I think it says in the 14th year of what? The 14th year, or the 12th, the 14th year, and that year count from Declaration of Independence by the 5 towns and allies from the Akkadian Axis. So that year count's already going. Just continue that to year 430 is the Exodus, 400 years from the birth of Isaac, so a covenant between the pots, and says 400 years your children. So which children are going to be subjected to that exile, forced labor, is going to be through Isaac. The children of Ishmael were not subjected to that, so you wouldn't count it from the birth of Ishmael. And when Avram's age 86, you'd count it from 13 years later, from the 12 or 13 years later? I think 13, that could be 12. Birth of Isaac in 2048, 40 years from that, 2448. And okay, so that's the 400 years from the birth of Isaac. Look in Rashi again, why, I guess Hashem's somewhat ambiguous, just like it's ambiguous about when the Messiah, the complete redemption will come. It gives us more merit, not knowing exact and keeping in good faith, despite the adversity, in the assurance of Hashem, in the not just the Exodus, that the fourth generation would return, and it did, but the complete redemption, at the which I believe happened, is in progress. Okay. I also look in on our commentary on Daniel, also in Torah chronology, on the Daniel chapters 8 and 12, how that correlates to recent events. Okay, so anyway, I hope hope that was enough for now. If you have any questions, post a comment or private message me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, ResearchGate, Academia. Okay. All right. Happy Rosh Chodesh. Happy Chinese New Year. Commemorating the weaning of Noah, and Happy New Year for trees, Beit Shammai, Rosh Chodesh, Shvat. Okay. And as others have pointed out, like Rabbi Quaret, Con magazine, right now we hold by Hillel. In 2 weeks we're going to have on the 15th of Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, Tet Vav 9+6, the Shvat. But at some point during this complete redemption process, we're going to supposed to start holding by Shammai again. So again, we'll be New Year, happy New Year for trees today on Rosh Chodesh, the new lunar month of Shavat, which should be, I think, month 11, because Tevet is Tevet Sian, which ends Hanukkah, is the 10th month, and spring month of Passover, the first month, and which began our first month, starting with the year of the Exodus, 2 weeks before the Exodus, in the springtime. Okay, all right. So, all right. Have a good month. Good Shabbos. Hashem should bless us. And friends and family with everything good. So, friend and family atonement plan, friend and family merit plan. So, friends don't obstruct friends from abiding by our eternal Jewish friend. Friends don't obstruct Jewish friends from abiding by our eternal covenant 613. The majority of those link to the land. So when we're ready to rebuild the Holy Temple, be sure to be on the right side of history there, and be supportive. And also, we at least always keep. If you're not Jewish, then we want to keep. It's not that easy. The 7 Noahide laws, which might seem easy, but really it's not. Consistent education and justice is, I think, sounds easier than it is. Not to be biased. Okay, yeah, we had to do Avadia 121. I think it's Avadia 121 time to get replace the UN Council of Evil. Okay, and we don't follow it majority to evil. Exodus 23:2. Just like in science, the strongest science is the highest probability explanation of the empirical observations. It has nothing to do with popular science. It has, in fact, popular science is at best it's a lagging indicator. Often, popular science is in a confirmation bias line box, which is, like I mentioned, lines with the Sahara, being a self, the more arrogant somebody is, the easier it is to self-fool. The more somebody thinks they know it all, the easier it is to self-fool. There's always more to learn, and we should, anything that contradicts Torah Masara, our unbreaking chain of revelation from Sinai. God showed Moses what the dictated word and duly recorded dictated word was, and Moses taught us, and we've retained that in Torah Masara to the best of our ability. Now, we're now that we're getting into the final redemption process and advancing in science and tools in science, even though science itself can be far off, even further off than it was thousands of years ago. But at least, we can, independent thinkers, always do your think from the bottom down, top up, and be internally consistent without the fudge factors. And if you don't know, ask. And if that person doesn't know, keep looking around, because everything aligns once you understand the science with Moses had it right to begin with. Everything that contradicts that is a scientific dead end. Okay, very good. Thank you for listening, anybody who stayed to this point. Okay.